When I became a father, I realized that it was a culmination of many, many things. I already said a lot of this stuff. Let me get past all of that. First of all, I had to learn what it meant to become a husband. When I became a husband, those were the first days of realizing and God taking me through what I call a transition from me to we. As you grow up as a young man, especially in today's world, there's so much emphasis on you. And it is necessary for a time and a season because you got to find out who you are, what you're actually gifted to do, and focus on getting education or training and skills. Even if you don't get a formal education, it's still very important, guys, to get some type of skill. Everybody I know can't go to a 2-year school, to a 4-year university, but get some type of skill under your belt. Very important. Even without a formal training that people can go through for 4 years and all that, but get a skill. So there's time and focus and season of where it's about you and what you need to do. But when I started going through the transition, and those of you who have a girlfriend, you are going through that transition of me to we. And it is quite a transition. Unfortunately, a lot of reasons why, part of the reason why couples break up, very important, hear me clearly, gentlemen. Part of the reason why those of you whose dad has left, part of the reason for dad not being there is because in some ways many fathers, and maybe perhaps even your own, never made this transition from me to we. Because when it's we, it means the bills are ours. It's not just her bills and my bills. It's our bills. It's not her money and my money. She can take care of these bills with her money, but my money, I'll make the car payment and pay the car insurance and put gas in the car. Why? Because I drive the car. But the house and the electric bill and the oil or the gas and the water bill, she can take care of that with her money. I'm talking about transition from me to we. The transition from me to we means such things as when you're down to the last and she needs, and believe me, she needs a lot more than you. I love giving this example. We used to give this one in our marriage, premarital class. Used to say, what if after all the bills are paid in the family budget, there's $100 left over? Here is what splitting that 50-50 means. Let's just say with the last $100 that's left over, you both need to get your hair done. Here is what 50-50 means. It doesn't mean she gets $50 and you get $50. It means you get $15 and she gets $85. Why? Because it's going to be $85 for her to get her hair done. And you can get your hair cut for $15. So the 50-50 is we both got our hair done, not the amount of money. Now, because many brothers never learn that. All the guys are laughing and say, what do you mean? I get $15 left? Yep, because it ain't the amount. It's what was done. And what was done, we both got our hair done. Transition from me to we. Woo! That's what the transition really looks like. In fact, you can be so busy looking and focusing on what you gave up, you really don't understand what she's giving up. On a very practical basis, I'll tell you that when she has your children, with the first day of pregnancy, her life and her goals and all her plans and everything that she was looking forward to doing, it is gone. There are no words to express what that feels like. It's a decision. She doesn't make it quickly. That's part of her process. Maybe like for 3 months, 4 months into the pregnancy, she's going through the grief of the death of her dreams. That's the reality. And that's just with the first child. With each child that comes, the dream gets put that much further back. And that's just one aspect. So yes, it goes both ways. You are both giving up your life. And so that's why it's necessary, gentlemen, for you to become husbands before you become fathers. Because that's where you start to learn the transition from me to we. Because by the time the children come, your focus of your life in no ways. I remember sometimes my sons, David one time, one Father's Day, he came and asked me, he said, "Dad, what do you want?" I'm like, "I'm cool. I'm fine." Why could I say that? And I'm boasting of myself. Because what's fine for me after going through these transitions, and I won't say it was easy, but what's fine for me now, 28 years later, is my sons are all saved, love God. They're adults now. Life isn't perfect, but we made it through the teenage years, and they didn't get anybody pregnant. So that's fine. So that is what I'm talking about, guys. It's a transition where the Father's Day gift is not a present. It's a life. It's results over time. And you'll love the day, appreciate the day, and the cards and the words. But I happen to be one of those type of people who I'm always surprised by cards and letters and acknowledgments and all of that, because that's not the goal. The goal is not an award. Why am I saying this, fellas? Here in Harrisburg, and I'm not putting Harrisburg down, but it's again another one of my observance. There's a stronghold on the men in Harrisburg, still striving for some level of recognition or affirmation and holding on to the dreams of childhood and of your youth. And you must get past, because that's what your wife or your girlfriend, or let me go back before that, that's what your mother had to do. She had to let go of her dream to raise you, to pay for the clothes that are on your back, for the food that you eat, for the water, for the electric. She even had to pay when the time stuff got cut off. Do you understand that when utilities get cut off, the only way it gets cut back on is somebody still had to pay? That's the reality. And the men, I'm not saying all 100%, but I've observed a spirit here in Harrisburg that has the men so focused upon themselves. The psychiatrists and the psychologists use a word, it's called narcissism. Narcissism. It is the focus and the worship of yourself, to the point where even everything that you do, even if it's a good thing, A person who can even give somebody, a person who's self-centered can even do something nice for somebody else. But the reason for doing it is for what they are now expected to give back to you. So a self-centered man never does a favor for anybody. That's why, gentlemen, and I don't mean to be raw, ladies, that's why when it comes to sexuality, most of the emphasis in the videos and the movies is all about our gratification. But a real man, husband, is more concerned about his wife's gratification than his own. They don't talk about this in the movies and in the videos and the gangsters, because it really is about how many B's you can get anyway, and you know what I mean when I say that. So to make the transition from me to we, become a husband first. Oh, and when I became a daddy, I was so glad to become a daddy. It was great news to me when my wife told me that she was pregnant. We had been married 4 years, and we just kind of felt like it's time to have a baby. And when Christopher came, even before he was born, Carol just laughed and laughed and laughed. Everything I said was funny. Everything I did was funny. I was a hit. I felt like I could have been a stand-up comedian. She laughed at everything until the last month. And then wasn't nothing funny. Nothing was funny in the last month. You can even see it in our photo album. All these pictures of Carol, pictures of her while she's pregnant. She turned into the side. But there's one picture in there that I took in that last month. And she's like, Lord, she was so mad. It was like, get that camera out my face. Nothing was funny in the last month. The first time I began to realize how serious this was while my wife was in labor. And we had gone to the Lamaze classes where they teach you how to do the breathing and all that stuff. Breathe and concentrate and focus and all that kind of stuff. And Carol was in labor in the hospital, and we were doing the breathing. We were doing just fine, and I thought this was going to be real smooth. But then the first real pain, not that any of them weren't real, but I mean the real one. And instantly, my wife went from calm and breathing to profuse perspiration out on her face, and her expression came on her face I will never forget, because I had never seen this. My wife was absolutely terrified because she had never felt pain like this. She looked at me and I couldn't do anything. I had never been in a position where my wife was in this much fear and this much pain, and I couldn't do anything. And in that moment, I look back now. I'm able to articulate this to you now, but I couldn't then. It was then in that moment that I realized why God made men to be the way we are. My wife had reached panic. She had reached pain, fear, disorientation, all of it. And in that moment, it was time to either man up and help my wife or run screaming. Doctor, y'all come do something for my wife. I'm telling you something very important, guys, because this is really what it all comes down to. What will you do when the crisis moments hit your wife and your family? Because you're not going to always be able to run and go and get help. In fact, You never will, because you can't leave them. There's an anger, a righteous indignation that's in me about the spirit here in Harrisburg that has men running when their families are in pain and their wives are in pain and fear. Yes, I do get upset about that. To me, there is no excuse for leaving your family. There is none. Unless that woman is beating you, threatening your life, and that is real. We've had to deal, and even in those situations where there have been wives, everything from mental illness to all kinds of things going on, and the husband had to leave because she was a threat and a danger to herself and the children. But unless you're talking like that, no, guys, there's no reason to leave. Otherwise, it's simply selfishness. It's those thoughts that the enemy planted back when you were 12 and 13, 15 years old. All the videos and the music and the movies that told you, you deserve better. You don't have to take this. That stuff may work in the world, but it doesn't work in real life. In real life, when your wife and your children are disoriented, in pain, that's the time to man up. What did I do in that moment? I told Carol, I said, look at me, didn't I? I said, look at me, just look at me. Just concentrate. Look at me. Don't think about the pain. Just look at me. And from that first moment that I did that, all the way until Christopher was born, that was how, part of how she got through it. Because that's what your wife and your children, I'm talking to you guys about your future. That's what your wife and your children are going to need from you. You may not be able to do anything. There wasn't anything that I could do. But I learned why God made us the way he did, guys. You will find that your wife, your sisters, your mothers, many times all they need you to do is just be there. You don't have to say anything, just be there. In that moment, she just needed me to be there. Reminded her of the breathing exercises. Remember how we was going to breathe? We was going to say 2 in and 2 out. And I started mixing them up to get her mind off of the pain. All right, let's do 2 breaths in, 3 breaths out. I started mixing up the pattern just to get her, stay here, stay with me. And she would close her eyes when the contraction would hit, and I say, don't close your eyes. Stay out. The word God gave me in the moment, I said, stay out here with me. Don't internalize. Stay out here. Stay out here. I kept saying this, stay out here. Stay out here with me. That's what it takes. And I will say this, guys, the phrase that they used to use growing up, they used to always say the grass looks greener on the other side. And that other lady, that other sister, the relationship can seem like it's so great because she talks and she listens and she seems to be there, and there will be times. My wife and I have had hard times. Carol wasn't much of a communicator at first. She was very quiet. I had to pull words out of her. And we went through a season where our relationship was strained and we weren't talking very much. We had 3 children. Life was very hectic. We reached a time in a season where the only thing we had to go from was those first 4.5 years of foundation that had been laid in our marriage when it was just the 2 of us. because there was no more time for having long talks late into the night. There was no regular sex. All you can go from is, I know that you love me. And I know that if you could, we would. Oh, that's going to be a tough one, but you will encounter this reality. And so it was during this season I was teaching, I used to teach the new members class in our church. And there was this one particular lady I saw you shift. She knew exactly where this story was going. There was this one particular young lady who was coming to the class. And she was a pretty cute girl. But one night at the midweek service, it wasn't a class night, but after a Wednesday, we had service on Wednesday nights like most churches do. We had a midweek service. And part of my job in those days, because the church was still young and growing, I think we were around 300 or 400 members by that time. And I would always lock up the church, trying to help people to get out. Y'all know how church people are. They linger and everybody's talking and everything. And I'm doing the person who comes and keeps flipping the lights. I did that. Keep flipping the lights on and off to signal people it's time to get out. I got to go home too, just like everybody else. And so this young lady had waited around till everybody was gone, and then asked me to take her home. Look at the look on Shelly's face. But in that moment, I'm telling you guys, in that moment, you don't decide in the moment if whether you're going to cheat on your wife. It's a decision that you make before the moment comes. It's not when the moment of seduction comes. You have either decided months, weeks, years before. In that moment, you simply give in to a decision that you had already made and already given yourself an excuse for. Excuses like, well, my wife ain't giving me none. I'm just a man. You know how men are, how we are. We got our needs. If she don't give it up, somebody will. I can always find somebody that will. Oh yeah, those are the thoughts. You know why? Because believe it or not, guys, your wife gonna get that same thoughts too. Hers usually starts off with something like, well, two can play this. Am I right, sisters? So what I'm saying to you is, the enemy just plays the same trick on both sides. But it's a decision that you make before the moment of temptation, you decide that you're going to do this. Secret Service men, these are the people who have to guard dignitaries and special people like the president. They don't just suddenly decide in the moment that I'm going to jump in front of the bullet if I hear gunshots while I'm escorting the president. It's a decision that they made already, so that when the moment hits, instinctively, they jump right in front of the president and pull him down, so that if the next shot that comes, it's going to hit me in the back or in the head. They're not sitting there deciding, who's going to get the president? Who's going to guard the president? Anybody that does that, that made up their mind, I'm not dying for him. It's the same thing for us with our wives and with our children. You make a decision. That's what all of that's going to mean when you stand in front of a justice of peace or have a church wedding and you make those vows. It's not just nice poetry. All of us who have been married, and even in a good marriage like what we have had, the good years, we had no idea what we were saying yes to. Am I right, all the married people? You ain't got no idea. But why am I telling you that? So that you can start making up your mind on these kinds of decisions. When the temptation comes, that's not the time to be deciding, am I going to be faithful or not? You make up your mind. So even though we were having a hard time and we were strained and wasn't nothing happening, as soon as I saw this sister and she came and asked me, can you give me a ride home? It was like instinct. I was like, excuse me, come here. And I went into an office that was in the lobby area of our church and said, you can go in there and call somebody. Just instant. No brainer. No way in the world I'm taking you home. So that's how guys end up in there. Well, it just happened. First I just took her home, and then we was just talking in the car. Then next thing you know, I was standing at the door with her, walking her to the door. And then something just kind of happened, and I gave her a good night hug, and next thing I know, I kissed her, and I know next thing you know. We all know the truth, brothers. Come on. We knew the moment we said, okay, I take you home, already your mind went to the morning after. From that point on, it's just like kind of playing a scenario to see how far will she let me go. He said, Pastor Chris, you ain't supposed to say that in church. Yes, I am. I'm supposed to tell you the truth. Ain't that right, fellas? Now it's just a matter of how far will she let me go. Is she feeling what I'm feeling? Are we having the same vibe? Is this really a setup like what I think it is? Is she really interested in me like that? Because it feels good to our ego that here's someone who appreciates me. Is there someone who understands me? The truth of the matter, part of the reason for the fight and the argument that you can be in the midst of with your wife can be because she understands you all too well. And this other sister, she don't understand. Part of the reason why the adulterous affairs and stuff kind of are exciting and everything at the beginning is because, you know why? Because she ain't sharing the bills. She ain't got no responsibility. So yeah, it's exciting and new. It's like the Love Boat. Remember that something that's the Love Boat. Something about exciting and new. The Love Boat. Yeah. So it feels like the Love Boat. People just go off on a cruise and there's no responsibility. There's no bills to be paid. There's no diapers to be changed. There's no children to take to school every day. There's no calls from school teachers. There's no rehearsals and classes to run people to. There's none of that. So many men spend the rest of their lives still trying to get away from all of this stuff. And so here comes a young lady, and in a lot of cases they're single. And she's carefree and her hair's done and makeup is perfect and everything. You know why? Because she ain't got your children. That's why. That's why everything is fine. Because she didn't have to get up at 2 o'clock. And then 4 o'clock, and then 6 o'clock. That's why she looks so good, and everything's fine. And she's fine. And she's so perky and got so much life and effervescence. She has all of that because, I got to be honest with you, because she ain't with you 24/7. But once she really gets to be with you 24/7, and it's the mundane and the everyday and the bills and responsibility, that's where we have to fight it, guys. We got to fight that selfishness. Here's the reason why this is so important. I want you to understand that one of the difference between men and women, moms and dads in the home. Dads are like the sunset and the sunrise and the sunset. We just do what we do every day. We just do what we do. The sun comes up, it goes across the sky, its light shines on everything, and it sets. Nobody stands and applauds when the sun, what a wonderful sunset. Oh, look at that sun in the noon. And the sunset, wow, look at that sunset. Wow. With dads, we go to work. We pay our bills. You encourage your wife. There are things that happen behind closed doors other than sex, gentlemen, that are extremely important. You encourage your wife. You make sure she's okay. You keep her up to date on what's going on in your mind and what you're thinking. You tell her about that girl who you suspect might be attracted to you. You just do what we do. Moms are more like this. We mentioned a little bit to the guys last week. Moms are a part of all of those things that keeps life from being the same every day. So sometimes the days are cloudy, and sometimes they're windy, sometimes they're rainy, sometimes they're full of rainbows. Other days, the temperature is warm and it's hot and muggy, and there are other days it's chilly. And we haven't even gotten into the changing of the seasons, because we go from spring into summer, we go into fall, into winter. So even for all of us guys, sometimes you know why it's a struggle sometimes to deal with dad? You can ask my sons, you know why sometimes it's a struggle to deal with dad? Because dads are it's always the same. Dad, what you doing? Nothing. Where you going? Nowhere. Dads, you just see them. They go out the door and they come home. And they play a little bit, watch a little bit of TV. You see them talking to mom. It's like we did. Play some games, but then dad goes to bed. My sons are laughing. Ain't that true? Dad just goes to bed. Dad just sleep. Dad's always working. That's what they remember. Dad's always up working when dad's sleep. Dad just does what dads do. And it's always the same. The sun comes up, it goes through the sky, and the sun sets. And that's how fathers are really intended to be, because your wife and your children got to be able to know that every day I can depend on you. Sun's coming up, going through the morning, noonday, afternoon, sun's going to set. I can count on that. You can ask every female in your life, and she'll tell you, that's what I'm looking for, that security of knowing you're going to be there. Now, it drives us crazy whether it's our moms or our sisters, because since we're so like that, we'd be like, why girls always changing? They always wearing different stuff. They change their hair. They change their makeup. They always got on different shoes. They just change. They're always changing. But God made them that way. Because believe me, life would be pretty boring if they were like us. If they were like us, all the clothes would be brown and black and gray. The only thing bright that we wear is white. Unless it's a team color of somebody, some sports team's color, we'll wear that. That's just how it is. And so God put them both in the mix so that every day, at least you know The day is coming. Now, what the weather's going to be, what the temperature's going to be, you may not know that. That's how mom. Ain't that right, mom? And so the two of them combined are supposed to provide the stability that you're looking for in the home. Unfortunately, I'm talking to a majority of guys where dad isn't there. And so this Father's Day may not have a lot of significance as far as that goes. And none of my comments have been to put you down, make you feel condemned, convicted, or none of those issues. The issue is this. For wherever state of mind your father may be today, and no matter what situation you may have been born in, raised in, or you're currently in, the issue for you today is this. What kind of father are you going to be? That's the issue. What are you going to be? And our ultimate example is to becoming more like Father God. Because here's how it was, and he is our example. Listen to me, guys. God is our Father. He is our example. What did he do? He took his very best. That's what I'm talking about. That's why I put so much emphasis on self-sacrifice. He took his absolute best, his only begotten son, and he gave. There was a song that I heard this one worship leader sing. It said, "If God so loved the world that he gave and gave, and he still gives today. And the only thing he came to take away was our sin, so we could all begin to love this way." That's what it means to be a father. You give and give and give and give. You say, won't I ever give till I've given out? No. God made us to be givers. The more we give, the more he keeps filling us up to give. The more he keeps providing for you to give. You can never give too much love. Hear me closely. You can never say I love you enough to your wife. She can never have too much affection. She can never, no. Some of the things that probably hit us the most is the issue of money. What about the money? How come so much money got to be spent on her? Money. For God so loved the world that he gave. He gave and gave. Because I'm going to tell you, when you have a real woman of God, that's a whole nother subject that we'll talk about in one of our guy sessions. But a real woman of God is not looking to take and take and take and take. If you hooked up with a girl like that, any young lady that's trying to take you, what I mean by take you away from your family, take you away from your friends, take you away from your church, take you away from your closest relationships, that ain't the one. Ain't the one. Ain't the one. I got a good one from Harrisburg. And she loved meeting my family and being a part of my family. Never tried to do anything to ever take me away from my family. Anybody that's trying to take you away from your family, there's something up her. She got something up with her. Something's up with her that she don't want your family to see. And she know your family gonna see it if she comes around them. And even though you can't see it, your family will. And the last thing you want to do is to suddenly discover the monster after you've said, I do. You know, you guys have these jokes about werewolf. You know, your wedding night, you discover you got a werewolf. Yeah. She was always so nice. She was always so sweet, yeah. Then you find out you got a witch. Hear me, a witch. Meaning she's a manipulator. Meaning you ain't gonna tap this unless you give me some money. You go, I done married a prostitute. This is not my wife, she's a prostitute. Only time she gives me anything is if I give her some money. And you don't find that out till after you say I do. Those are the kind of things that your family can see, even though you can't see it, because we're in love. Sometimes when we're in love, gentlemen, and we already got tunnel vision anyway as men. We're very narrow in our vision, even in the natural. I did it tonight. Mom had been in here, I guess, about 20 minutes or so, and all of a sudden I go, oh, hi, Mom. Because I was focusing. I was getting ready for tonight and what I wanted to share. And so we're just like that. Sometimes we're so focused, we don't see the obvious. And so it's a good thing to bring her. Let your sister, if you got a sister, let your sister talk to her. Even before mom, let your sister talk to her, because your sister, oh my God. If she can get past your sister, then take her to mom, because you don't want to scare the girl half to death by taking her to mom first, unless you just have to. If she can get past sister, because you know what, because what's going to happen is after sister evaluate, she's going to come tell mom. So at least mom has forewarning. That's the reason why I say that. Ain't that right? Because if sister gets mom ready for the witch, it's far better than if mom confronts the witch for the first time. See, because then mom's there. Ain't that the way it is? Sister will say, Mom, she's manipulative, and then that way mom can come forth with wisdom. See, the moms are laughing. They're laughing because they know I'm telling the truth.